right, for those of you who have already received or are expecting to receive your Paycheck Protection Program loans, you probably have a lot of questions. Most people we're finding went into it with the attitude of it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission. So a lot of paperwork wasn't filled out. They have no idea of what they're to do next. And I'm understanding there's a lot of pitfalls.
Yes, if you do not do this the right way, you could be paying a lot more back. Hi, I'm Cathie Mannion with Avanti Pro, and I'm here with Joe Bilello with Avanti Wealth. We're going to talk to you about what to do now with the payroll protection program, specifically what you need to do to maximize the amount that is forgiven, as well as the accounting and reporting requirements that will be needed in order to support that forgiveness.
This is not a normal accounting. It's not something that's just going to come out of your QuickBooks as a report.
No, because the loan forgiveness requires that 75% of the use of funds be for direct payroll costs, that's cash to the employees, as well as the full-time equivalents being back to the COVID analytical period, and the amount of the payroll paid out has to be pre-COVID period, and there's a restoration calculation. So it's a massive calculation that involves a lot of moving parts. What you want to do is ensure that you use the funds only for the allowed purposes and use 75% for those direct payroll costs. The allowed purposes of the loan money is for payroll, and our website has a long list of items that are included in that number. Mortgage interest, if the mortgage was signed prior to February 15th of 2020. Rent payments, if your lease was signed prior to 2/15/2020.
So there could be a problem if somebody had a renewed lease, say March 1st.
Possibly. Again, the SBA is coming out with guidance daily to the banks regarding how to do this calculation and what is needed. Utilities are included as an allowed purpose, as well as repaying any EIDL loan, the economic injury disaster loan repayments that you might want to make with the payroll protection program.
So the EIDL loan would be part of the forgiveness.
It is an allowed purpose if it's not more than 25%, because you still have to pay 75% in wages and salaries to employees.
Okay.
Which gets us to, how do you account for this? Now, I know a lot of our clients are entrepreneurs and they want to just do their business and not get into the accounting. But if the loan is not utilized appropriately and not reported appropriately, it will cost you money. So it's a balance sheet item until it's forgiven. This is a loan. If it is not utilized properly, it will continue to be a loan and continue to be on the balance sheet. However, if it is forgiven, you have to take into account, how do you want to report it? Do you want to focus on your analytics and see your year-over-year payroll costs as you have all along? Or do you need the payroll that was paid with the payroll protection program funds up against that loan and out of the salaries and wages expense? This is a conversation you need to have with your advisors and your accountant, because how this goes into the books is how it's going to come out.
So really important is to make sure you're establishing the procedure and process for that now.
Absolutely.
For the 8 weeks, because there's a fairly short time period to validate this. When is the final reporting due?
The reporting is due to the lending institution within 6 months of the funding, because in month 7, it turns into that loan, that term loan. Therefore, you need to work with your bank. Your bank is going to define what reports they want and what format they want it in, just like they did with the loan application. If you applied at multiple banks, you experienced that some only accepted the SBA application, others had a separate individual form. Each bank is going to apply the SBA guidance into their unique processes.
So what's crazy is the amount of time is really short. we've been into the COVID-19 shutdown and distancing for about 6 weeks.
Mhm.
The expenses are only for 8 weeks. And
it's what's paid out in the 8 weeks. If you're on a biweekly payroll and your pay period was prior to the 8 weeks, but you're cutting the check, say 2 days in, that might be a short pay period because you've laid people off. Therefore, you really have to analyze what you're going to do with this money and ensure that you meet the allowed purposes for the maximum forgiveness.
it could be even worse if you're on a monthly payroll.
Yes, absolutely.
Because
Monthly.
you might not have 2 pay periods fall in there. You may, but you may not.
Yes.
So that's an 8-week period, and there's really only 26 weeks from the time you get the check to close out your reporting.
Correct. So reporting is key. Some of your payroll providers will be having unique COVID reporting for the payroll and the employee benefits pieces, but the other pieces have to be taken into account. And of course, your payroll company does not have the receiving side of it.
Okay. So the important thing would be you might have, let's say, $100,000 PPP loan that could all be forgiven. But if you don't have the proper documentation and you miss maybe 20% of that, that now becomes $20,000 of otherwise operating capital that has to be paid back.
Yes.
So there's a huge penalty for not following the rules on this and dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Absolutely. And even though the amount that is forgiven is tax-free, the expenses that you typically would deduct from your gross income that were paid for with this loan are not deductible. So the net effect could be an increase in taxable income. So tax management over the long period of 2020 is important as well.
Okay, so there is a lot to consider. So some of it could be adjustments in pay for some employees. Some could be an adjustment in possibly pension retirement plan contributions.
Yes.
Because they're not always funded on a paycheck basis. Many of those are funded annually or throughout the year.
And those are an allowed purpose.
Right. Okay.
So you really need to look more than just this 8-week window because it affects further down the road.
Okay, so it seemed difficult, the process to apply, but compliance seems like it's going to be the real issue. I think they'd be happy to get the money back, which is another thing to consider.
Yes. There is still money. The SBA is updating their website every night of how much of round 2 of the COVID money, the payroll protection program money is available. In addition to that, the forgiveness or the grace period for those that received money in round 1 but realized they didn't comply with the certification. For example, Harvard University, they really don't qualify for this funding, so they're going to give that money back. Well, that money is going to come available, and that's not out there yet. So there could be money up until the end of this loan period, which is June 30th.
Okay, that, and they're not done with this yet. We had round funding, everybody thought it was over. They had round 2 funding. We don't know if there's going to be round 3 funding. The other thing that's possible is those that have applied that were eligible, we don't know. There may be tax credits or some money available at tax filing time. We don't know how they're going to move forward with this because it is unfair for those who needed it but didn't get their filing in on time, or those that didn't realize how bad the impact was going to be on their businesses until a later date.
Absolutely.
So the idea would be continue filing. And what is the filing deadline now?
The applications are being accepted up until June 30th as long as there are funds. So again, talk with your individual bank or reach out to other lenders that are qualified SBA lenders.
Okay, so the idea would be if the filing window is open, if they're accepting the applications, you believe you have an economic loss and you're eligible, get your application in as soon as possible because we don't know what the final funding will be.
Right.
So we do have information on the avantipro.com website.
AVANTIPRO.com.
Okay.
Or give us a call at 407-331-7330.
Yes, we're here to help. Thank you.